For this, we're going to walk through both the IPN and IDW files. So let's just sketch up something real quick to dimension. I'm going to start this in millimeters, open up a 2D sketch, and we're just going to make another little bracket here. I'm creating a circle that has a diameter of 20 millimeters. And then I'll throw in a construction line. I'm going to put another ring of circles around the first one. I'll pop this out 40 millimeters. Escape gets you out of a line command or something. And I'm going to put another circle over here of 20 millimeters. Hopefully you're getting used to using those snapping tools. And I'm going to use the little circular array over here. So you select your geometry, select the axis you would like to rotate around, and then how many objects you want. There's 5. And I'm going to put a border on here, so just one more circle. And this time we'll select a diameter of 120 millimeters. Okay, in Sketch. And we'll go ahead and extrude this guy up as a solid 80 millimeters. So there you go. Let's go ahead and add one more extrusion on here just to give us something with some interesting internal things to mention. I'm going to pop this circle out 40 millimeters and make another circle that's just larger than what we had. And this time, instead of extruding as a solid, I'm going to push it down instead and make a hole out of it. Play around with those different extrusion options that you have. So here's what we have. We've got a hole that goes all the way through the middle there. So now we're going to go ahead and open up a new file type, and that is a drawing. Now, rather than metric, I'm going to go with English, so we can go with a standard 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So I'm going to go ahead and go to so there's parts, assemblies, and IDWs, Inventor drawing files. Create this, and it defaults to kind of this large sheet. So I'm going to start by just right-clicking and deleting all of this stuff. For my sheet, I'm going to right click and say edit sheet, and right now it has us on some huge size. ANSIA is at 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So there's our paper size, and then up here under drawing resources, there's a bunch of different ways to make title blocks and borders. There's different sheet formats. So what we're going to do here is not just make one sheet, but a whole series of sheets. So this can go into creating a working diagram. Okay. For borders, you can go with the default border, right click and just insert this guy, or I can right click and say define a new border. And for this one, you can just sit here and draw, rectangles on it, say, what's my printable area? So I can offset the edge, right, and draw rectangles and put it just kind of like we did in AutoCAD, sort of a deal. So it's just making a sketch, and when you save it, you're going to give it some kind of a name. I'll call it Border 1, Save. And this shows up now as one of your borders, and you can take it, right click, and insert it into your sheet. So now underneath my sheet I have a border. Or I'll go ahead and delete this out and show you another way to make a border. Right click and select Define New Border Zone. And this zone, you can put alphabet or numerical, so A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3. And tell it how many zones you would like on here. It will insert, kind of just divide up the side, and this just makes it easier if you have some huge complicated document and you want to tell people what feature you're looking at. You can say I am at A3 or I am at C2, and it's just easier to find things on there. So I'll call this border number 2. And if I come in here, I can go ahead and right click on this and insert that into my sheet. So there you go. Now my sheet has this new border on it. Okay. Title blocks. The title blocks are similar to the borders in that there's kind of these generic pre-created title blocks here. So here's the generic standard ANSI title block, and it has, you'll notice that some of these, like it has my name in here and the date it automatically added and the paper size, and it's automatically put in what I called this file. And what I want to do here is actually not use their generic title block, but show you how to make your own custom title block here. But just so you know, there are some generic title blocks again. Here's the large one if you just want to see that real quick. So if I insert that, has kind of some the same information, date, approved by, drawing name, and then as we add sheets to it, it can automatically update the page and things like that. Okay, but I'm going to delete these out, and let's go ahead and see how to make these for yourself. So I'm going to right click on here and say define new title block. And again, it brings us into the sketching mode, so you can see all of your sketching tools here. And just like we did in AutoCAD, you can start by just drawing regular old rectangles. So let me see. I'm going to make just some rectangles for fields. Let's see, I'll make that 0.375 by 2 inches. And then just to kind of get rid of the clutter, I'm going to delete those dimensions. That the rectangle is still the right size. And I'll go ahead and copy that guy with a base point. I'll grab him, yeah, just right at the corner here. Okay, so I'll start him. So this is sort of just drawing some rectangles in that we can fill in with text later on. And I'm copying these and just kind of snapping it into place. And maybe we want a spot for like your company logo or something. So I'll put another rectangle over here for, I don't know, 1 by 2 inches. So up here there's images that you can insert an image. And for that you have to tell it where to put the image in. So I'm going to just make an area for this little box right here, and let's see, pictures, I don't know, sure, why not. Okay, so there's an image in there, and then you can put text in here too. So I can come in here, make a box, and I'm going to align it in the center and in the middle. Type in maybe ENGR 1304. Okay, so you can write in text. Something neat about this though, instead of just typing text individually into each sheet, Inventor has what's called I properties. If you come over here and say I properties, you can define all of this stuff. So subject, this is for ENGR 1304. And the title of this is Chapter 7, Exercise 10 or something. And you can have your company, Lone Star College, and comments. So you can record more than just the file name in here. And then you can have it autofill in your text. So I'm going to go ahead and create a different text in here. So I'll start center, center. Let's say I want to define what units are in here. Now instead of just typing in inches, I'm going to come over here and let me just show you. So there's all of these drawing properties, model properties, and these will auto-generate when you start putting stuff in here. Sheet properties, the scale, the revision number. So kind of go through all of these things. Now if they don't have the information in here that you would like in there, you can create your own prompted entry, which is when you open up this title block, it will ask for that information and then it will assign that as kind of part of the iProperties. So I'm going to go ahead and create my own prompted entry, and I will put my entry as units. Okay, so this is where I'll define, oh, this is millimeters or inches or centimeters or something like that. So I'll take this prompted entry and say OK, and there we go. If you ever want to reopen this guy, just right click on it and you can say edit text. So maybe I want to actually write units and then have that prompted entry in there. Okay, let's try another one. What else should we put in here? Maybe we can have the name, right? So if we go to our drawing properties, and sure, why not, the author. This will pick up if you have your own computer and you're assigned to that computer and you have your name on there, it will detect who is signed in and it can put that in there. Okay, this little X with the arrow next to it, that will bring your prompted entry into your text field and get that aligned in the center again. Okay, so you can fill in all of these kind of things. It's always a good practice to add the day in here. So we can put that in here. I'll make another prompted entry just so you can see that. Oh, and again, just right click on that, edit text. I didn't get that centered on there. So there's centered. So once you have all of these in here, finish sketch. And this is the name for this title block. So I'll just call this 1304 title block. Save. And you'll see now underneath my drawing resources, I now have this little title block. So I have the generic ones that come with the program, but then I also have the one I created by custom myself. So right click on here, insert, and these are those prompted entries. So I think we made ours in millimeters, so I can just add millimeters here. The date, so you can add a date in here. And after putting that in here, it actually adds those prompted entries in there for you. So that's kind of a nice little feature there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add another sheet, and this time instead of a landscape view, I'm going to create a portrait view. So here's my new sheet, and again, I'm going to go ahead and delete out the default border and default title block and add in the ones we created previously. So here I'm inserting that border around here and my title block that I created. So I can, for this one, I think we had units of millimeters. And this is where we'll put in our date in there. Okay, this will just work a little bit better for what we created. Next thing, we're going to place our views. So instead of saying view base, you just come up here, place views, and you can go ahead and find where you saved this. Now, before you hit OK, you've got a bunch of different options. So click on your view cube and you can rotate everything around. So get that lined up. And you can also come in here and change the scale. So that's probably an OK scale. So after you have your scale set and the orientation how you want, go ahead and say OK. And then if you click on kind of the border of this thing, you can drag it around the page. You can create projected views. You can create auxiliary views if I have a slanted surface. Here is sectional views. So if I click on Sectional Views and zoom in on here. I'll go ahead. For something like this, we want to slice it through those internal features that are interesting to us. So I'm going to go ahead and just take that through a couple of center points. When you're finished defining where your slice is, right-click and say Continue, and here comes that sectional view. So I'll pull that off of here. And again, after you create that view, you can come back and grab that by the little handles and pull it out to make sure that it is exactly where you want that. Okay, next I guess we should go play around with our annotate tools, huh? So here's all of our annotate tools. We have some dimensioning tools. Now these are kind of nice. I can just click on this line and bring it out, and oh, I've got it on the wrong units here. I'll come over here and click on dimension, and instead of the standard, we want to go to our millimeters. So here is our units, and you can go ahead and define your precision and tolerance. Up here, I'll just leave this guy as is. This is the old way we were doing dimensions. What if we wanted to add tolerances into this? And anything on here, right-click and edit it. Under precision and tolerance, you can see a lot of different options we have here. We can define a deviation, so 40 plus or minus 0.01, maybe plus 0.01. We can do it a non-symmetrical. And what that changes it to is this kind of a limits dimension style. Or if I right click on this again and edit, you can see what the stacked limits are going to look like, or you can see the linear. So there's a bunch of different tolerance settings that we can do here. Let's just do stacked for now. Okay, how about if I want to add some geometric tolerance notes? So there is dimensions, how tall it is. There's also how perpendicular, how centered, how smooth. And let's go ahead and put a centered tolerance on here. And for that one, if I want to make sure that this circle is centered within some tolerance to what's outside here, what I want to do is label the surfaces with some kind of a datum. So I'm going to go ahead and move my sectional view, just click on it and move it. And underneath symbols, there's a bunch of different symbols on here that allow you to add different notes to it. I'm going to go ahead and start labeling some features on here. So I'll go ahead and label this inner surface, and after you place this guy, hit escape if we only want one label on it. I'm going to kind of just drag him down so that he's outside of there. And maybe I will also label this surface over here. Okay. And instead of A, I'm going to call this surface B, because this is a different feature over here. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say B with respect to A. I want to make sure this is all centered. So I'll go ahead and add a feature to this outside here. Right click, continue, and I'm going to make sure that this is kind of centered with these other surfaces within 0.15 millimeters. So this is with respect to A and B, those other surfaces that we just labeled on here. There's a whole bunch of different geometric tolerances, and you can see the table for what each of these mean, or just hover your cursor over it. So How straight is this? How flat is this? How cylindrical? How centered? So just kind of hover over these symbols and you can see what those symbols represent. And you can go ahead and walk through this thing and label features and label the tolerances on them. Okay, so see if you can make it through the rest of that workbook and label all of the features on. So here's an example with dimensions and a few notes. See if you can get it all lined up.